In a world where towers rise higher than trees and most mornings begin with the sound of traffic instead of birdsong, many of us have started to believe that nature and the harmony it brings belongs only to the countryside. That Feng Shui is something you practice when you have a vast garden, a koi pond, or a winding stone path. But here's the truth. Even the smallest pocket of green, the simplest gesture of life rooted in soil, can completely recalibrate the energy of your space, especially when that gesture is a tree. Not a towering oak or a sprawling maple, but a modest, graceful tree that fits perfectly on your balcony, beside your entrance, or in a single ceramic pot by your living room window. Because in Feng Shui, size isn't power, intention is, and trees, more than any other plant, carry the deep symbolism of rootedness, growth, patience, and strength. They are living antennas between heaven and earth, channeling upward movement while anchoring you in peace. They take time to grow, but the energy they release starts working from the moment you plant them. They shift the vibration of a space silently, persistently. And when chosen well, they do more than decorate. They protect, uplift, and transform. So today on New Day Mindfulness, we're going to explore 3 sacred trees that Feng Shui masters have long recommended for urban environments. These are not mystical myths. These are grounded, practical trees you can place even in tight city living. In your apartment balcony, in a sunny corner of your studio, or say at your front door in a shared courtyard. Each one holds its own frequency. Each one speaks to a different form of luck, be it wealth, harmony, clarity, or peace. And each one can be the seed of an entirely new energetic chapter in your life. As we go through each of these green allies, we'll also talk about how to position them, how to activate their energy, and how to care for them, not just physically, but spiritually. Because Feng Shui is not only about what you place, but about how you relate to what you place. Energy doesn't just arrive because something is beautiful. It arrives because something is meaningful. And here's something you'll want to stay for. At the end of this video, I'll share the quiet but powerful story of a visual artist in New York City. A woman surrounded by steel, deadlines, and concrete who placed a single olive tree in the corner of her 4th floor balcony. Within 6 months, not only did her sense of calm return, but so did her creative flow, her financial luck, and her sense of emotional grounding. She called it her green prayer, and she swears that tree changed her life. So if you're living in a city and feel like your space is too small, too noisy, or too stagnant to support the kind of life you really want, this video was made for you. And before we go any further, I'd love to ask you for a small favor that makes a big difference. If you believe in the power of mindful living, in creating sacred space even in the most ordinary places, please help this message reach more people. Leave a like on this video, share it with someone whose apartment or porch could use a little Feng Shui love, and subscribe to New Day Mindfulness. We are working toward reaching 2,000 subscribers, and every click brings us closer to that milestone. More importantly, it helps me continue sharing meaningful, grounded content like this with those who need it most. Your support is not just appreciated, it's the reason this channel grows. Now take a breath with me. Wherever you are, city or countryside, in motion or at rest, imagine a small tree taking root in your space, not for decoration, not for trend, but for transformation. Let's begin. The Feng Shui perspective, tree energy in the urban landscape. In the Feng Shui tradition, trees are never just ornamental greenery or background decor. They are living conduits of qi, the vital life force that shapes and sustains the energy field of every environment. A tree, even a small one in a ceramic pot on a city balcony, is considered a vertical bridge between heaven and earth. Its roots dig downward into grounding stability, while its branches reach upward towards spiritual clarity and growth. This upward movement is essential in Feng Shui because it reflects not just the physical direction of the plant, but the energetic intention it holds: expansion, progress, and elevation of one's personal vibration. Every time a tree grows, it declares motion. It declares that the energy here is active, alive, and moving towards something greater. Trees carry the essence of the wood element, one of the five elements in Chinese metaphysics, and wood represents more than just the plant kingdom. It symbolizes personal development, ambition, flexibility, and benevolent strength. The wood element governs not only growth, but ethical leadership, purpose, and creative direction. In a home, especially one surrounded by man-made materials, screens, glass, and concrete, this vertical energy becomes essential. It helps offset the overwhelming presence of metal, which can be cold or rigid when unbalanced. It also introduces a steady rhythm that reconnects the space with nature's deeper frequencies. While the fire element sparks and earth grounds, wood quietly moves, always reaching, always stretching. And in that stretch, there is transformation. Urban living often cuts off this wood energy. High-rises and small balconies might give the illusion of isolation from nature, but Feng Shui offers a powerful reframe. It's not the landscape that defines the energy, it's the intention behind how we arrange and cultivate it. A single tree placed at the right spot, chosen for its symbolic quality and nurtured with presence, can be more potent than an entire backyard of neglected plants. It's not about acreage. It's not about how tall the tree is. It's about whether it's respected, aligned, and energetically welcomed into the home's field. Even in the most compact homes, micro-apartments, rooftop studios, or small shared porches, a living tree can act as an anchor. It breaks up stagnant qi, softens sharp edges in the energy field, and provides vertical nourishment to a horizontal world. In Feng Shui, balance is everything, and city living often flattens energy, making everything compressed, pressured, and energetically tight. A tree counterbalances that tension by restoring breathability. Think of it this way: a well-placed tree becomes a kind of natural exhale for the space. It doesn't shout, it doesn't compete, but it holds the space open for something greater to arrive. Placement, too, is essential. A tree positioned near an entranceway serves as a guardian, inviting positive energy while filtering out low vibration. A tree on a balcony acts like a signal tower, magnetizing harmonious frequency from the external environment. A tree placed near a workspace elevates focus, purpose, and clarity. And when placed near a bedroom window, a tree can support restful energy, encouraging release and emotional steadiness, especially when paired with soft lighting or complementary earth elements like natural stones or ceramic pots. One common misunderstanding among urban dwellers is the belief that unless a tree is large enough to cast shade or bear fruit, it has no energetic value. This is a mistake. Feng Shui reminds us that symbolism matters more than scale. A bonsai tree, for instance, though only inches tall, can hold immense energetic power when placed with reverence and maintained with care. Likewise, a slender olive tree in a minimalist planter may not shade a yard, but it can completely shift the emotional tone of a living room or entryway. Care also plays a central role. A neglected tree does not amplify energy, it distorts it. In Feng Shui, every living object carries a reciprocal relationship. You nourish it, and it nourishes you. A tree that is watered, trimmed, and appreciated regularly returns that attention in subtle but impactful ways. Improved mood, better flow in daily tasks, unexpected opportunities, and even more harmonious relationships within the home. A tree becomes a witness to your evolution, a green mirror reflecting your inner commitment to grow, to rise, to root. Feng Shui does not ask you to become a horticulturist. It simply asks you to become aware, to choose your plant companions consciously, to understand their symbolism, and to tend to them with the same mindfulness you would offer to your meditation practice or your most sacred rituals. Because when a tree enters your space, it brings with it more than chlorophyll and oxygen. It brings stability, motion, direction, and the ancient promise that life, when tended with patience, always finds a way to rise. Tree 1, Dwarf Citrus, Wealth Activation in a Pot. The first tree we turn our attention to is small in size but powerful in presence, the Dwarf Citrus. In classical Feng Shui, few trees carry such immediate and recognizable symbolism. Across Chinese culture, citrus fruits have long been associated with wealth, gold, and vibrant life force. The bright yellows and deep oranges mimic the gleam of coins and sunlit prosperity, while their strong aroma is thought to cleanse, energize, and uplift the chi of any space they occupy. When you invite a dwarf citrus tree into your home, whether it be a Meyer lemon, a calamondine orange, or a kumquat, you are not simply growing a plant. You are cultivating the essence of abundance itself. What makes the dwarf citrus especially suited to urban living is its adaptability. These trees require only a moderate container and consistent sunlight, making them ideal for apartment balconies, bright entranceways, or even indoor spaces positioned near sliding glass doors. Unlike larger landscape trees, dwarf citrus can thrive in pots without losing their power to energize a space. In fact, when placed with intention, they become living activators of the fire and wood elements, two of the most essential energies for ambition, recognition, growth, and vitality. The wood energy emerges through the upright growth and constant renewal of leaves and branches. The fire energy, meanwhile, is amplified by the color of the fruit, vivid gold, orange, and sometimes crimson. This combination makes citrus trees a powerful bridge between steady expansion and magnetic brightness. Placement is key to activating this tree's potential. According to the Bagua map, placing your dwarf citrus in the south area of your home energizes the fame and recognition sector, helping you stand out and draw positive attention in your field. If wealth and financial luck are your primary focus, place the tree in the southeast. This sector governs money flow and long-term prosperity. For overall vitality and family wellness, the east sector is ideal, as it supports health and emotional strength. In each of these placements, ensure that the tree receives strong natural light. Feng Shui sees sunlight as a natural amplifier. Without it, energy wilts, just like leaves. Even when placed indoors, as long as the citrus receives several hours of full-spectrum light, it can continue to radiate upward momentum and clarity into your space. More than other types of houseplants, citrus trees ask for active engagement. Their energy is high, spicy, zesty, vibrant, but they need to be fed well, watered regularly, and given attention when the seasons change. Leaves that begin to curl, droop, or turn pale are not just signs of physical imbalance. They reflect an energetic disturbance as well. In Feng Shui, the health of a plant mirrors the health of the area it supports. So if your wealth tree begins to suffer, it's worth reflecting on what might be draining your own energy, focus, or discipline. Conversely, when you see new blossoms emerge or the fruit begins to ripen, take that as a spiritual affirmation. Your energy is aligned. Luck is ripening. Stay present. One beautiful tradition that ties the citrus tree to cultural luck is its role during Lunar New Year celebrations. Families across Asia adorn citrus trees, especially kumquats, with red ribbons, gold coins, or hanging charms bearing words like Fu, fortune, and Shu, longevity. These symbols do more than decorate. In Feng Shui, they act as frequency amplifiers, charging the tree's vibration with human intention. You too can adapt this ritual in your home. During the new moon, a solar return, or any significant moment in your personal cycle, consider adding a red string around the tree's pot, tying a gold charm to a branch, or speaking a clear intention while touching the tree's leaves. These rituals are small, but in Feng Shui, it is often the smallest gestures, performed mindfully, that generate the most profound shifts. The presence of a citrus tree near your home's entry is particularly auspicious. Imagine this. As you open the door each day, the first thing you see is a tree bearing the color of sunlight, radiating health and optimism. That's not just good design, it's spiritual anchoring. Your subconscious absorbs this image. It reminds you without words that abundance is growing, that joy is tangible, that your environment is supporting your rise. For those living in cities where land is scarce and noise is constant, a dwarf citrus offers more than aesthetic relief. It becomes a sensory portal, a source of scent, color, and natural rhythm. It softens the edges of urban pressure and invites the softness of nature back into your life. It teaches you the rhythm of tending, of patience, of reward. And in the context of Feng Shui, it becomes a living partner in your pursuit of balance, expansion, and golden prosperity. Tree 2, Japanese maple. Peace, elegance, and flow. Among the most quietly powerful trees in the world of Feng Shui, the Japanese maple stands apart. Not because of its grandeur or size, but because of the profound emotional and energetic equilibrium it brings into a space. It is a tree that speaks not in volume, but in texture, color, and grace. Its delicately laced leaves, often shifting from emerald to crimson over the seasons, offer a visual symphony that reflects the deeper truths of human experience: change, maturity, and inner refinement. In Feng Shui, the Japanese maple is often aligned with yin wood, a softer, more receptive, and emotionally attuned frequency of the wood element. While other trees surge upward with the assertive yang energy, this one flows with quiet precision, embodying the healing aspect of nature rather than its aggressive push. From an energetic standpoint, the Japanese maple is ideal for spaces that need gentling. It soothes homes where anxiety lingers, where the past still echoes, or where emotions run too hot or erratic. Its presence is meditative, softening the flow of qi rather than directing it. That makes it a perfect choice for shaded patios, calm container gardens, or semi-sheltered entry ways where you wish to create an emotional buffer between the outer world and your personal sanctuary. In Feng Shui, this tree is particularly potent in the east sector of a property, which governs family, health, and renewal. It is also well suited to the southeast, the sector that deals with wealth, not the flashy, erratic kind of wealth, but the cultivated, sustainable abundance that grows over time through steady attention and right relationship with resources. Unlike the bold citrus tree or the authoritative pine, the Japanese maple whispers its message. It brings beauty, yes, but more than that, it brings the rhythm of the seasons. It shows you that shedding is necessary, that bareness can be elegant, and that regrowth, if rooted in patience, returns in full color. That is why it is often recommended for homes in transition, for families recovering from upheaval, or for individuals seeking to deepen their inner stillness while navigating outer complexity. The tree is both a mirror and a balm. Visually, it pairs beautifully with dark earthen elements. A black stone container or basalt gravel at its base deepens the tree's grounding, while also connecting it to the water element, which in Feng Shui supports emotional flow, introspection, and intuitive development. This triadic combination, wood, earth, and water, creates an energetic harmony that is particularly beneficial in urban environments where these elements are often fragmented or overwhelmed by synthetic materials and high activity. When the Japanese maple is given a stable container, a protected space, and regular care, it becomes a silent guardian of emotional health and aesthetic refinement. However, there is one crucial consideration: placement. The Japanese maple is not a tree that thrives in harsh conditions. Direct, unrelenting wind or excessive sun can stress its leaves, just as chaos and excessive demands can fray the human nervous system. This tree prefers protection. It flourishes in places where it can receive filtered light, where breezes are gentle, and where its energy can sink into the space without resistance. Think of it not as a tree to impress, but as one to invite. Not one to show off, but one to build a relationship with. It rewards presence, not performance. If your home has a front courtyard that feels bare or energetically sharp, a Japanese maple can soften the entrance and create a feeling of graceful welcome. If your balcony feels too exposed, placing a Japanese maple in a wide ceramic pot in a shaded corner can create a pocket of calm that transforms the entire mood of your home. And if your patio or backyard is overrun by yang energy, too many hard edges, noise, or fast-moving qi, this tree can restore the balance by drawing you into slower rhythm, encouraging contemplation, and restoring a sense of emotional stability. There's a reason why many Japanese tea gardens feature this tree as a central element. It doesn't command attention, it earns it. It doesn't dominate the space. It teaches you to inhabit it more slowly, more mindfully. And in Feng Shui, where every object should ideally hold both symbolic and energetic value, the Japanese maple excels. It is transformation in slow motion. It is wisdom with foliage. In urban settings especially, where time rushes, noise distracts, and emotions scatter, the presence of a single Japanese maple, even in a pot, is enough to recalibrate an entire balcony or walkway. The tree reminds you that stillness is not stagnation, that small spaces can hold deep healing, that elegance isn't an aesthetic, it's a vibration. And when you bring a Japanese maple into your life, you are not just improving the visual landscape of your home, you are inviting yourself into a gentler, wiser relationship with your surroundings and yourself. Tree 3. Olive tree, resilience, wisdom and wealth. With grace. Among all the compact trees honored in Feng Shui for their subtle but deeply transformative energy, the olive tree carries one of the most profound symbolisms. Often associated with peace and diplomacy in Western tradition, in Eastern metaphysics, the olive tree is seen as a fusion of resilience and refinement, a living embodiment of grace under pressure. With its slender, silvery green leaves, its gnarled yet flexible trunk, and its ability to bear fruit in difficult terrain, the olive tree tells a story not of speed or spectacle, but of enduring strength and sustainable abundance. In Feng Shui terms, it unites the grounding stability of the earth element with the forward-moving vitality of wood. This duality, rootedness and reach, makes it an exceptional tree for city dwellers seeking clarity, longevity, and emotional recalibration in high-stress environments. Unlike louder, showier trees, the olive tree communicates through subtleties. Its muted color palette reflects contemplation. Its slow but determined growth mimics patience, and its unassuming beauty cultivates a kind of quiet authority in any room it enters. It's a tree that doesn't ask to be noticed, it asks to be known. And when placed with intention, it can become a spiritual ally for those navigating creative challenges, relationship complexities, or the inner tension between ambition and rest. For this reason, olive trees are highly recommended for home offices, creative workspaces, meditation rooms, and entryways where energy needs to be stabilized before it enters the rest of the home. In Feng Shui, the olive tree is particularly effective in 3 zones of the Bagua map: the Southwest, which governs relationships and emotional harmony; the Northeast, which supports study, reflection, and self-cultivation; and the center, the Tai Chi, which serves as the energetic heart of the home. When placed in these locations, especially in ceramic pots with good drainage and occasional pruning, the olive tree emits a stabilizing current that strengthens the emotional climate of a space. It supports those seeking not just peace, but purposeful peace, the kind that allows for creativity, decision-making, and calm momentum. It does not sedate the space, it organizes it energetically, bringing focus where there was once distraction and gentle insight where there was once confusion. There is a particular story that captures the olive tree's energy beautifully. A painter based in Manhattan, known for her large abstract canvases and emotionally layered colorwork, found herself entering a prolonged period of burnout. She had completed a series for a major gallery, but instead of feeling satisfaction, she felt drained and directionless. Her creative energy had stalled, and her apartment, though filled with light and carefully curated decor, felt energetically barren. On the advice of a friend who practiced energy healing, she added a potted olive tree to her studio space, placing it beside the window where the morning light entered. She didn't expect much. It was, as she later said, just a bit of green to fill the emptiness. But what began as decor became devotion. She began journaling beside the tree each morning. She watered it on a schedule. She spoke aloud her goals and her doubts in its presence, using the time not to produce art, but to restore her relationship with silence. Within 2 months, something shifted. A wave of commissions returned. She felt a renewed clarity in her work. Friends noted her softness. Sleep improved. And most importantly, she said, it wasn't about the art anymore. It was about alignment. I didn't realize a tree in a pot could feel like a life partner, but the moment I started caring for it, it started caring for me. This is not uncommon in Feng Shui. Trees that are treated with presence and respect begin to hold memory and energy. They become witnesses to your growth, participants in your rhythm. The olive tree especially mirrors the soul's slow reclamation of peace. It's ideal for those who are healing from burnout, ending cycles, starting new journeys, or building wealth with integrity rather than force. Because the olive tree is not a sprinter. It is not for those chasing quick fixes or shortcuts. It teaches you the strength of slow success, the kind of wealth that includes time, connection, and dignity. To enhance the energetic effects of an olive tree, especially when placed indoors or in semi-sheltered urban spaces, consider tying a red thread near its base. Red is an auspicious color in Feng Shui, associated with protection, vitality, and activation. This small gesture signals to the space that this tree is sacred, that it holds intention. You might also hang a lightweight wind chime above it, not to stir constant sound, but to remind the air to move gently, to dance in the tree's presence, and to keep the qi awake. These additions do not alter the essence of the tree. They amplify it. Care matters deeply. Like the Japanese maple, the olive tree asks for calm environment, harsh winds, fluctuating temperatures, or environments with chaotic energy can destabilize its frequency. In terms of maintenance, it requires a rhythm, sunlight, good soil, respectful pruning. But when that rhythm is met, it rewards with loyalty. Unlike plants that bloom once and fade, the olive tree stands with you over years, growing denser, stronger, and more attuned to the energy of your home. It doesn't demand attention, it returns it. So if you're someone seeking a tree that doesn't just decorate your space, but transforms the emotional tone of it, consider the olive tree. Whether placed near the front door to welcome harmony into your relationships, or near your writing desk to support focus and creative stability, it will subtly but persistently shift your home's vibration. Its beauty is not ornamental, it's instructional. It teaches patience, it teaches presence, and most of all, it teaches peace that lasts. General tips for urban tree placement. When it comes to placing trees in smaller urban environments, balconies, terraces, compact patios, or even indoor corners near large windows, the most effective Feng Shui principle to follow is quality over quantity. In tight or high-traffic spaces, one tree placed with clear intent, proper care, and energetic alignment will always outperform a cluster of neglected or visually noisy potted plants. In Feng Shui, crowded corners tend to trap energy rather than circulate it, so avoid turning your green space into a jungle of distraction. Instead, treat your chosen tree as a living centerpiece, a qi anchor, not just decor. Let it breathe. Cleanliness is also key. Tree leaves, just like mirrors or windows, absorb and reflect energy. When they are covered in dust or debris, that reflective function is dulled, and stagnation begins to settle into the energy field around them. This isn't just about aesthetics, it's about vibrational hygiene. Taking a few moments each week to gently wipe down the leaves with a damp cloth or a natural spray made from lemon peel water or white sage infusion can dramatically uplift the energy of your tree and the space it protects. This act of care is energetically reciprocal. The more attention you give to maintaining the vibrancy of your tree, the more vibrancy it gives back to your home's field. Seasonal rotation is another often overlooked technique, especially in urban homes where space is fixed, but light angles shift. As the seasons change, so do the intensity, warmth, and direction of natural light. Trees that are thriving in one position during spring might suffer or underperform in that same spot come autumn. When possible, gently move your potted tree every 3 to 4 months, adjusting it so it continues to receive nurturing light and energetic exposure. This movement doesn't need to be drastic. Sometimes a shift of just a few feet to the left or right is enough. What matters is that you observe the tree's interaction with light, shade, and space over time, and remain flexible in your approach. To amplify the vibrational benefits of your urban tree, you can also pair it with elements that complement or balance its core energy. For example, placing a small water element, like a tabletop fountain, reflective water bowl, or even a blue ceramic tile beneath the pot, can harmonize with trees that emit more fiery or wood-dominant energy, cooling and circulating the qi. Conversely, for trees that carry a cooler or more grounding frequency, a nearby candle, copper lantern, or red stone can add the spark of fire to round out the elemental balance. In smaller spaces where natural elements are limited or unevenly distributed, these subtle additions help create a microclimate of alignment. The goal here isn't to follow rigid formulas, but to tune into how each element interacts with your chosen tree in the space you live in. Does the tree look nourished? Do you feel uplifted when you pass it? Has the space around it become quieter, more focused, more alive? These are the signs to look for, not just whether the Feng Shui textbook rules are perfectly followed, but whether your tree is in dialogue with the energy of your space. The more mindful you are of the way a tree fits into your home's emotional and energetic architecture, the more it becomes an ally rather than an ornament. And in dense urban environments, that distinction makes all the difference. Shall we move into the closing reflection next? I'm ready when you are. Finally, even in concrete, a tree can hold a dream. That's the quiet truth Feng Shui has whispered for centuries. You don't need rolling hills or a forest retreat. You don't need endless land or manicured gardens. You only need one tree, placed with care, watered with attention, and chosen not just with your eyes, but with your soul. A single olive tree on a balcony, a Japanese maple beside your reading chair, a dwarf citrus quietly ripening beside your front steps. These aren't decorations. They're mirrors of your inner state, reminders of what you're cultivating even when no one is watching. In Feng Shui, the simplest changes ripple outward. A tree doesn't just change the air, it changes the rhythm, the tone of a room, the emotional weather of a home. And when you choose a tree, not for beauty, but for alignment, when you say yes to the energy you most need, what you're really doing is saying yes to a new version of yourself. So ask gently with honesty, what is my energy asking for right now? Not the tree that's trending on social media, not the one your neighbor has, but the one that resonates with your current chapter, whether that's clarity, protection, growth, or calm. Which one do you need as your quiet companion? The kind that stands still when everything else moves. The kind that teaches by being. And once you've found it, place it with care. Clean its leaves, rotate it with the seasons, let it hear your hopes. Because over time, that tree will become more than a plant. It will become part of your energetic story, rooted where you once scattered, growing where you once hesitated. If this video gave you a new way of seeing your space, of softening the edges of urban life, I warmly invite you to help this community grow. Please give this video a like, share it with someone who's longing for change, and subscribe to New Day Mindfulness so I can continue offering more grounded, heart-centered content to you and others. I'm on a journey to reach 2,000 subscribers, not for vanity, but because the more of us tuning into these subtle energies, the more peace we can collectively anchor in our modern lives. And now I'd love to hear from you. Which tree are you drawn to right now and why? Where will you place it? What energy do you hope it brings into your life? Share your answer in the comments. Your story may quietly inspire someone else. Until next time, may your home be blessed with life that grows, peace that lingers, and energy that aligns with your highest path.